Give me a thumbs up when you're ready to go.
I think we're good.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to this information session for the Masters in Financial Engineering program at the University of Illinois. This is being recorded so that there are some people who are not able to make it in this time zone. They'll have a chance to watch it later on. My objective today is to answer some of these questions that I think are usually on people's minds when they apply to a program. What is this degree and why is it distinctive? What is financial engineering? What did the student profiles look like in the past? What is the curriculum? What are these things called concentrations and practicums? And so on down the list. And hopefully I'll end up with some recommendations for you to get deeper involved in the world of quantitative finance and financial engineering. The slide that I'm showing at the moment shows the staff of the MSFE program, and they are here today to help me answer your questions should you have them. I am the director of the program. My name is Morton Lane. Marcia Hatchell is the coordinator of the program. Amy Lamb is the office manager, and Matt Murphy is the FinTech coordinator. Matt will be running the chat line to harvest as many questions as you might want to ask. Let's start with the thing that I think makes this program distinctive. It is that it is a joint venture at the University of Illinois between the College of Business, the Geese College of Business, and the Granger College of Engineering. The department heads for the two specific departments in those colleges that provide the faculty and the resource for our MSFE program are pictured there. They are Louis Chan and Jeff Sharma. And the important thing that I think that one ought to realize about this program is that it's multidisciplinary and it is directed at being practical. It is directed at creating practitioners. So let's move quickly on to what I consider to be the definition of financial engineering. And it's here that I think I've tried to encompass the things that this program stands for. Financial engineering, in my opinion, is the application of quantitative methods to the analysis of financial markets and financial products. And these quantitative techniques include mathematics, statistics, computer science, data analytics, AI, and deep learning. And that is not an exhaustive list. The applications involve trying to find profitable opportunities or loss avoidance strategies, as well as simple problem solving. And those things involve the balancing of risk versus reward and the measurement, management, mitigation, and transfer of risk. Just to put it in perspective, this slide shows you what financial markets are all about. There used to be gentlemen in top hats, as the top left-hand panel shows, for the early days of the Chicago Board of Trade. The middle panel shows you the Chicago Mercantile Exchange as it was just 30 or 40 years ago, and I was actually on the floor of that exchange at that time. And the upper right-hand panel shows you the pictures that you get from American news, business news programs that show the New York Stock Exchange as it physically is at the moment as a backdrop. But the real truth of the matter is none of those pictures are appropriate. The most appropriate picture is the one at the bottom there, where a central computer is surrounded by servers, and those servers are the ones who are directly in contact with the users of the market, whether those users be regulators, exchanges, high-frequency traders, or retail investors. And that is true of derivative markets, and it is true of equity markets. That's why you need quantitative techniques in today's financial markets. A financial engineer goes by many names, and here is a young man who graduated from our program 8 or 10 years ago, and he is a self-described financial engineer. But he could, if he wanted to, go by any of these names. The most common name for financial engineers, and it embraces quantitative finance, is quant. And quant used to have a rather specific definition. He was, if you like, the brains who sat next to a trader. But increasingly, the traders are the brains themselves, and the brains themselves are the traders. So a quant definition includes both of those things, but they also go by the names of equity analyst, high frequency trader, algorithmic designer, financial modeler. You can see the range of things, again, a non-exhaustive list on this slide. We try to be practical, as I've indicated, and we do that by having a board of advisors that is in the industry rather than in academic life. The 6 companies here are from Chicago, New York, and Shanghai. And those are the main financial centers in the world. CTC is one of the biggest options traders, options market makers in the world. Parametrica is a hedge fund run by a graduate of the University of Illinois out of, I think he's in Beijing, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. Dan Perper was a director of the other main market-making options trader in the world, which was Peak Six. He now is running a separate company. Goldman Sachs is the standard bearer for the equity industry and conventional equity securities and bond securities. CME is the largest derivatives exchange in the world, and RCM is a smaller company that specializes in the efficient execution of orders in this milieu of computers and exchanges that we've illustrated so far. This is a picture. I put some pictures in here just to relieve my conversation, but this is a picture of the Geese College of Business main atrium where students gather and exchange notes. And who are the students that come to MSFE? Well, we admit people who fulfill the following requirements. And I'm going to go through these slides rather quickly. All of them are on the msfe.illinois.edu website, so you can refer to them later. But these are the prerequisites. There are some additional requirements. One of the things that we say is that we like work experience. It's not a requirement, but it's desired by us. And we like people who are good English speakers, understanding as we do that many people have English as a second language, but that is the language of instruction that we use. Our applications process goes from December 1st, just about 4 weeks ago, and 5 weeks ago, and we will close applications on April 15th, and final decisions will be available to everybody by May 15th. We run a rolling admissions process, so the admissions committee meets every 4 weeks and considers and processes all of the applications that have come in during that period. We have had, over the 12 years of our existence, students from every country that is represented here. The biggest component or cohort has been from China. The second biggest has been from India and the United States. And then we've had several representatives from each of the other countries shown on this graphic. What is characteristic of all of the entrants, whether or not they, whichever country they come from, is that they look like some of the graphs that I'm about to show you. If I take the one on the right, you will see that the biggest cohort that applies for the program are engineers. They have undergraduate specialization in engineering, then mathematics, then finance, economics, computer science, business statistics, physics, and others. So we have, as I say, it's a multidisciplinary program. Undergraduates come from a variety of undergraduate disciplines. And in terms of admissions and applications, usually about 9 or 10% of the people who apply for the program end up being enrolled in the program. Those people who enroll have one thing in common, and that is that they have very good quantitative abilities. If you look at the GRE scores, which are displayed on the left, the gray bar is always in the 90s. The average GRE score percentile is in the low 90 percentile range. And so that is the most important entry statistics of our class, or characteristic of our class. In the bottom left-hand side, you will see that TOEFL scores are also in the 103 to 106 range, and that reinforces the point that we want people who are able to communicate in the English language. This picture is of the Gies College of Business again, outside of the atrium, but that's where students will spend half of their time. They spend half their time on the business college campus and half of their time on the engineering college campus. Have we had any questions yet, Matt, that we should pause and answer, or should I continue to move on?
I haven't seen any questions in the chat yet.
Okay, then we'll move on to what I think concerns a lot of students when they're applying. What does the curriculum look like? And this is the most efficient chart we can give you to show that. It shows that it's a 3-semester program. The first semester has a lot of, is filled with requirements. The shaded areas are core courses. And so the first semester involves Introduction to Finance, Machine Learning, Statistical Methods in Finance, and Financial Computing. Those things we think are most important to get everybody from these various different degrees together on the same understanding of the components of being a financial engineer. In the second semester, there are 2 core requirements: understanding financial derivatives and understanding stochastic calculus and numerical methods. That occupies half your time. And then in the third semester, there are 2 short courses which we think are necessary to complete your understanding of these foundational things for financial engineering: term structure and optimization. Each of those is a half semester long, and so that occupies a quarter of your time in the third semester. What do you do in the other time you have free in the second and third semester? Well, you get to choose among a variety of electives. One thing you can do is to choose electives which fit the program that you want to, and continue in that fashion. However, what we've done also is to develop some concentrations, which I'll describe a little bit more of in the moment, which are recommended packages of electives that will allow you to say that you've got a master's degree in financial engineering with a concentration in either data analytics in finance or advanced data analytics. Those are the two concentrations we have at the moment, and we're working on a third that involves low latency and algorithmic trading. So you can choose electives that you want or electives that feed into having you recognized as having done those concentrations. There's one other thing that we do require of all students, and that is that they do a practicum. This is a semester-long project with a corporate sponsor, and you can either do that in the second or third semester, depending upon availability and depending upon your preference. Let me turn a little bit more to these concentrations to answer questions here. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will see the data analytics in finance, which requires you choose big data analytics in finance. That satisfies a core requirement. And then you can choose another two courses from the short list that I put there, although there are other courses beyond the short list that are available. Those are the most important ones. Similarly, or in a similar fashion, although slightly different, the data analytics in industrial and systems engineering requires that you choose two core courses and choose a third that is from a list. I put deep learning here, but the list is longer than that. If you look closely at this, you will find that the core courses actually are two of the core courses for MSFE. So you will be part way to get in your data analytics in industrial and systems engineering, should you choose to want to have that on your transcript. And if we ever get the university to approve it, we expect to have a third low latency concentration, which will involve electronic trading, algorithmic trading, testing and design, and a choice of one other elective beyond that. In the case of this one, all of these classes are currently being taught. And so if your interest is in pursuing that direction in financial engineering, the tools are available to you. We just don't have the blessing of the university to call it a concentration yet, which we are working on. So summarizing, this slide shows that we run several courses out of Chicago. Now, this was in the pre-COVID era when a number of our adjuncts, who some of whom still work in industry and live in Chicago, were teaching students in Chicago. A number of our practicums are in Chicago, and students would travel to Chicago and take a combination of practicums and industry adjunct courses, such as electronic trading, such as asset allocation and options market making. In the COVID era, all of that stuff is being done online, done remotely, I should say, and it is likely that it will be available remotely after the COVID period passes. And hopefully it does pass within the next 6 or 12 months. So I've mentioned data analytics a number of times, and what I think for the layman, what data analytics means, among other things, is that there is masses of data out there, and there are now, in the last 5 years, perhaps more, but certainly in the last few years, a myriad of ways in which it can be analyzed. There is a massive amount of data, and one of the things we want our courses to teach you is not only how to analyze that data in its massive content, but also to then synthesize it and illustrate that data in a way that's comprehensible to non-technical people. So that motivates much of the design of the program. I've mentioned the practicum, and I have 3 slides here, which I don't want to spend too much time on, but just to show you the sorts of things. In the fall of 18, we had practicums with Morgan Stanley, BMO, RCM, CME, and Google. And in 19, it was Morgan Stanley, Bianco Research, RCM and CMA again, and Social Market Analytics. This last semester, Morgan Stanley, SMA, RCM, and CME. And they are extraordinarily good ways to learn about financial engineering. The corporate sponsors who come up with these projects are actually looking for the answers to the projects. It's not a major made-up product just to satisfy curious students. It is a real project that they want answers to do. And so I think this is one of the crown jewels of the program, that we've been able to do this. And a list of these projects is on the website. I think it's over 110 or something like that in the 12 years that we've been doing it. You can look it up on our website. That's a picture of the Granger Library, which and our offices are fairly close to that Granger Library on the engineering campus. Now, what does the program cost? This series of slides is key to understanding the MSFE at Illinois. Tuition costs $70,650. That'll be the cost for entrance for the class of 2022. There are some university fees on top of that, which involve services you will get if you are on campus. It's somewhat less than that in these remote days, but I put the most the pessimistic estimate here. And so it amounts to $25,000 or $26,000 per semester. Now, how does that compare? Well, some of the top programs, and we consider ourselves to be one of those top programs, TFE, the financial engineer, ranks us the 5th best program in the US. And here are some of the others that top that category. The Carnegie Mellon costs $84,000. Berkeley, which is only a 12 months rather than an 18-month program, is $73,000. MIT is $106,000, and Columbia, which is again one of these 12-month programs, is $73,000. So we think it is a good competitive rate and emblematic of what financial engineering programs cost wherever you go in the US. We do have scholarships, and we award them on a merit basis, depending upon the admissions committee. And we also have scholarships for Illinois residents, which can be substantial. And this year we are offering 50% scholarships for Illinois residents. And we also offer, courtesy of some of our donors, some in-program small scholarships, which are intended to reflect the fact that students in the program have been making an extraordinary contribution to it, and we reward them with small scholarships. If you are an Illinois resident and get a 50% tuition scholarship, just to do the math for you, which I'm sure you can do for yourself, this means that you would end up paying something like $14,000 a semester, as opposed to the $25,000 for a full paying student. So we think the fee is appropriate, and we also want to incentivize good people to be here. So we offer merit scholarships and in-state scholarships as well. Where do that's another picture of the engineering campus. Our offices are to the far right of that part of the campus. Where do our students go when they graduate? Some of them go for higher education. Just a minute, have I missed something here? Oh, let me come back to these slides. They go to many of the companies that whose logos are on this slide. And you will see there's a variety of banks, financial firms, both in this country and around the world. As I started to say, some students go to PhD programs, but frankly, our master's program is not about research. It's about practice of applying techniques as much as anything. And I recommend students often to go out and get a job and then go back for a PhD if that's what they choose to do. And many of them have done that. In terms of classifying where they go, this graph shows, and this is on the website, this shows that almost a fifth of them, almost a quarter, go to banks, investment banks, and commercial banks. Financial consulting companies like Ernst & Young and PwC that was showed on the previous slide take another big chunk. And then there are three which I put together: proprietary traders. Chicago is a center for proprietary trading. New York is, and China is as well. And a number of students would like to be in a proprietary trading shop. Some go to brokerage companies, some go to the exchanges and or the regulators. We have a number of people who've gone to the CME and a number of people who've gone to the Federal Reserve. Hedge funds, some people end up as software developers. It must be said that some of those who end up as software started out as good software students, CS students. But there are other parts of the financial industry, one of which is insurance and reinsurance. And our students are scattered throughout all of that. Let me go back. I skipped over these resources things. They're on the website. They're just other places you can go to look at other ways to help you decide if MSFE is, if Illinois is a good place for you to do your financial engineering education. When you're here, we try to involve you in a lot of activities, some of which are team building, some of which are touring to Chicago and New York for visiting firms there and visiting career fairs that are in those cities. Hopefully we will return to that as soon as COVID disappears. I'm going to conclude on what I think some students ask this question. I'm an engineer, and I'm a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer or an aviation engineer. How do I learn a little bit more about the financial world? And I think that's a very important and insightful question for a student looking at financial engineering. I have three sets of recommendations here. They all amount to looking at what is going on in the financial world. I recommend you read newspapers or periodicals that deal with the financial world. The Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times, the South China Morning Post, and then there are some sites like Yahoo Finance and Bloomberg, and periodicals like The Economist, which all I think are well worth reading and will give you an idea of what is going on, what's important. And in particular, if you read those, you'll find some of it boring and some of it not interesting, but you may find something which is happening right now that you can follow through. And if you follow the articles that go with a particular event, you will begin to realize what the components are of all the things that touch upon financial decisions. So those are one set of recommendations. If you have more interest, here are some books which I would recommend. These are not textbooks. These are not things that you should study up on and think you're going to take exams on. These are books that tell you a little bit about what the financial world is all about. And I can talk more about those if there's a question. And then last but not least, if you don't want to read newspapers or books and would prefer to do stream some movies, here are a couple or 3 or 4 that I think might help you. Wall Street deals with the world 30 years ago. Margin Call and Too Big to Fail deal with the world in the financial crisis in 2008 and 9, as does The Big Short. But they capture some important features of the financial world, and I'd recommend that you take a look at those. There are more, but this is just a short list. Last but not least, here is a graph that I try to keep in my mind. I call it my pizza graph. It says quantitative methods and applications of the vertical slices, the horizontal slices are financial products and financial markets. And we're trying to apply the top slice to the side slices to end up with the bottom slice. So thank you for your attention. I hope this has been informative. Matt, we have a few minutes, I imagine. So are there any questions that you can encapsulate? Or that...
There was one question about the Illinois resident scholarship, the 50% reduction that you mentioned, and what are the requirements for that? But it's really just an accepted candidate who is a resident of Illinois, right?
Exactly. You put the first thing. Not every resident of Illinois is accepted into the program. It's somebody that would be accepted into the program who happens to be a resident of Illinois.
Yeah. And the other one was how important is GPA? If the GPA is low, does that impact the candidate negatively?
Yes, it does. I think the threshold for the GPA, as far as the graduate college, for any activity at the University of Illinois, I think it's 2.75. We aim, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe the minimum GPA now for the graduate college is 3.0.
3.0?
Or
Okay.
that's for their undergrad?
Yes.
Okay. If you look at, let me see if I can go back to the graph here. Hold on a second. If you look at the GPA in the top graph here, you'll see that these are the average GPAs of the incoming class over the last 10 or 11 years. There's one here where it dropped to, it looks like 3.3, but the average is above 3.0, which means that we have accepted people with a lower GPA, but we have to make a justification for that. If there are other redeeming features like their work experience or their interests, then we will make, and it's the recommendation of the admissions committee, then we will make those justifications to the graduate college. So 3.0 is our target, that threshold. It's not a black and white target.
Also, there's a question about the math prereqs. Was that on an earlier slide, I think? Yeah, there it is. You just passed it.
Did I pass it?
Yeah, there it is.
Okay. Yep. And what was the question?
So the math prereqs would be one year or 2 semesters of calculus, 1 semester of linear algebra, and 1 semester of differential equations.
Yes.
And 1 semester of programming, we prefer C++,
Correct.
and 1 semester of probability and statistics.
Yes. Now, some people enter the program and they've done those a long time ago. We will, with our acceptance letter, we will recommend that you come to a boot camp if you need to brush up on some of those things. If you if you fulfilled the prereqs, but you still are thinking, God, I've forgotten how to do that, that we run, actually we run 4 boot camps immediately before the instruction starts. One is for computing, on brushing up on C++. One is for probability and statistics, and one is for finance, which involves term structure and things like that. And often we'll suggest that engineers who come from mechanical engineering will take the finance one. The other boot camp that we run is CS for quants. We don't always run that at the beginning of the semester, but it is a free thing that we've done this year and did last year. It's not intended to teach you computer science. It's intended to acquaint you, if you're not a CS major, with some of the foundational guts of the way programs and data is best organized.
Morton and Matt, we do have a question here about, student wants to know if they can apply for both MSFE and MFE. You want to touch base on that?
They're the same thing, I think. Some people.
MSF, sorry, finance and financial engineering.
Okay. The director of the MSF program is a member of the MSFE committee. What often happens is people apply for the MSFE. We don't always feel that all the candidates are qualified, but they are good candidates for the MSF, and we will move their applications to the MSF. So that, I think, is the preferred way to do it. Apply for the MSFE, and if we don't think you're appropriate for either program, you may get a rejection letter, but you may also get a letter which says, we think that you would prosper in the MSF program.
You mentioned the computing boot camp. That used to have a cost associated with it, but I think recently we have waived.
Yes,
right? So
if I say the word boot camp, it is free, for all for all enrollees.
Yeah.
It's no extra cost is the answer.
Right.
Morton, do you want to touch on the fact that we are offering hybrid course delivery right now?
Yes, I think that's, I'm glad you mentioned that. Since COVID, and the class, which is going to graduate this year in 2021, entered in entered in August of last year, end of August. Some of those enrollees were not able to enter the United States. Many of them are from China, and they remain in China, hoping that they will be able to get in this fall, perhaps, so that they can have something of the American experience. And I hope that turns out to be the case. But in the meantime, they are enrolled in this program. They are resident in China, and most of them are resident on the ZJU campus, which is just, I think, about 100 miles south of Shanghai. So there are about a 10 or a dozen of our students who are taking their courses from ZJU. They're what we call China remote. Of course, we also have US remote students who are in the US, but choose to take their classes remotely they didn't want to travel to the campus. And we have some students who are on campus who have taken some in face-to-face classes. They are in a minority these days, but some are on campus and are taking remote instruction. So the university and the program have been as accommodating as they can be in catering to all the circumstances that our enrollees find themselves in. And we will continue that, I'm sure, in the first semester next year. And we will continue that until such time as students are able to travel to Champaign.
One of the students asked about the simple entry program with ISE. To answer your question, we would have to look at that. Technically, the simple entry program is for the Masters of Industrial Engineering or the Masters of Systems and Entrepreneurial Engineering. So that doesn't, financial engineering doesn't technically fall into that into those categories. So we would have to look into that further. But if you are a U of I student or even an ISE student, then we would look at your credentials to see if that would apply.
Yes, we would be positively disposed, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking for 40 or 45 minutes. I think I'm going to draw the proceedings to a close. Thank you to those of you who attended today. Please don't feel this is the last opportunity you'll have to ask questions. We will be delivering the recorded thing available to you, and we will run subsequent live presentations in the future. So thank you everyone today, and I look forward to seeing your application. It's worth it. Thank you.
A student asked a question. Yeah. Maybe recommended for the other program. They were asking for specifics on the MSF or MSFE. But you do have to apply for either one of those if you are looking to apply for one of those. It's two separate programs.
Yeah, they're separate programs, and I don't know of any case where an MSF was referred to us. Our program is more sort of restrictive, but we often get people who apply to MSFE, and we say, well, they're not right for our program, but rather than just reject that candidate, we may transfer the application to the MSF program and say, would you? And oftentimes they would say, oh yeah, this would be a great MSF candidate. So we work closely with them. And so that would happen behind the scenes, but you might get an offer letter from MSF instead of MSFE if you apply directly to us.
That, and we contact the student. So, you know, if they are recommended when we're doing the admissions process, if a student is recommended for the finance masters, then we would contact the student and say, finance is interested in you. Would you be interested in that program? And then get their permission to transfer it over. Econometrics undergrad at UIUC, and I'm worrying about my quant background for MSFE. I wouldn't say to worry about it. Would you, Matt?
No, that's probably fine.
Yeah, econometrics.
We have math, econ people all the time, but we also get straight finance majors who have even less, you know, quantitative background. If you can do well on the GRE, I think that's a pretty good indication that you can do what we teach.
And then leading into the GRE, Sean is asking about how heavily our GRE scores weighed in admission decisions. We look at your application as a whole. We're not just looking specifically at your GRE scores or GMAT scores. We're looking at how well-rounded of an application do you have? How what's your educational background in those core classes that we're looking for? GRE scores, we've had applicants that have had much, lower scores on the GRE than we would like to see, but it's not a make or break. So we tell people we do want to see those GRE scores because of the quantitative ability, but it's not going to make or break a decision about your admission.
Yeah, bear in mind, half the applicants have scores below the average, right?
Right,
That's the average
right.
of everybody. So there's some people that are lower. We hope they have either some work experience, maybe they're really great at computer programming, there can be a lot of things that balance a candidate's strengths and weaknesses. So we try to look at the big picture, not just did they,
Right.
meet some minimum threshold.
You're welcome, Sean.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions that we can answer while we're on?
These are all good questions.
Yeah. I have a master's in business administration, CFA chartered holder, and 168 on the quant part of the GRE. Hey, Rasul, please apply.
That's pretty good. We would
Yeah.
definitely be interested in that.
Yeah, please go to our website, guys. If you're still on here, please take a look at our website at our admission criteria. And like we said in the, do you have a chance to be accepted? Well, we'd have to look at your whole application to make that determination. But it sounds like you're off to a very good start. The other things that we're looking for are your references and any kind of employment background. We're looking for to make sure that you have the math and the computational skills to be able to handle our curriculum. So we have a very intensive curriculum. So if you're used to that kind of thing and you think that you'd be well suited, then I would encourage you to apply.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. Any other questions from anybody? My dog has a question. Sorry. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions popping up. Anybody that wants to ask any questions after this info session, we'll take emails. You can email me at msfe@illinois.edu. And I'm happy to answer your questions. If it's anything that I can't answer, then Matt or Dr. Lane are able to answer questions that I can't handle. But please feel free to contact us, and we're very glad that you stopped by today.
All right. Thanks, guys. Hope to hear from you.
Have a good night, everyone.